Hello, everyone, and welcome to our video sessions for the 2015 North American Systemic Constellations Conference coming up in November. And today I'm very excited to introduce John Cheney, who is giving a presentation on Sunday, November 15th in the afternoon, 2 to 3:30. And the title is Feeling Our Roots, Grounding with the Five Elements. Welcome, John.
Oh, thank you so much, Linda.
I'm really excited to hear about your talk. And so as a result, I want to give you all the time you want to explain your talk. So please introduce us to the five elements and grounding and all the other things you'd like to tell us.
Well, thank you so much. The five elements, you could say, is a systemic model for wholeness. It gives us basically a way to see whether or not we're balanced or not in our lives. And it gives us a number of indicators and how we can see that. So how that applies to grounding, for example, sometimes we get overrun by stress and our mind runs out of control. So everybody's experienced that. And if, let's say, being able to ground the mind, many of us will resort to eating food. And we have a nice dinner, and after that dinner, then we feel relaxed, and maybe our mind can relax. So that is one way of grounding. So we do these things. It's very natural how we self-regulate. And so five-element constellations are about that, bringing balance to our system. And I like to think of it as we're kind of at a state of neutrality. So a state of neutrality with with a lot of our feelings, where we can see and feel what is actually happening. So, like, for example, this time of year, being fall's coming on, and they say it's metal time. Now, before I go into that, I'll just give you the five elements so you know where I'm coming from. So fire, a lot of this is already encoded in our language. Everyone says, "Oh, he's a warm-hearted person." Well, fire, represents the heart. It has three other meridians associated with it, but I just want to keep it simple. So you can think of fire as the heart, and generally my feeling, how I feel. So at times I'm feeling a lot, and at times maybe I'm not feeling so much. And it's like the fire is either, it might be burning out of control, it might be very, very subtle. And that's kind of the expression of a person's spirit. So, and they call it Qin in Chinese, and that's your spirit being small or very big. So, and it just represents how do I feel, and kind of the apparatus in this body of what I'm feeling through. So, and we know through systemic constellations, family constellations, a lot of the work is about engaging in the heart. In the heart, so feeling grounds us in the moment. Each one has a component of grounding us in the moment. So when we eat, that can settle our mind, kind of relax us momentarily. So it's a mode of self-regulation. And then breathing would be, so eating would be earth, breathing would be metal, which represents, you can think of the lungs, large intestine. And then water is going to be associated with kidney and bladder, but it represents hearing. Kidneys are about the size of your ears. And so listening, and then seeing is a wood quality. Each one has also a stage of life. Wood is, are very youthful, exuberant. It's springtime. Each one represents a stage of life, a stage of the day, a stage of the year, and that kind of thing. So, and wood, you could say each one gets regulated by an act. Like fire might be meditation or feeling or passion or sex, that kind of experience. Earth, walking on the earth, being in nature has a very soothing. Again, with metal is breathing. And let's say when you take a hot bath, there's a mode of regulating and grounding yourself through water. And exercise would be wood, so that youthful kind of energy. So the point I was about to make was that this time of year is, we're approaching fall, and the season changes, and our bodies get impacted by that, and the energetics. It's almost like a subtle form of hypothermia, where our energy kind of recedes inward, and we may not look as healthy and vibrant as we do in the summertime. But we also may feel the feeling of grief a little bit more. So, in family constellations, we might do a piece and find out, hey, there's transgenerational grief that's being handed down from one generation to another. And we have asthma, we have these conditions that usually when you feel grief, you feel it in this area of the body, which just so happens that's where your lungs are. So you can see what's helpful about the 5 elements is you can begin to read your own system and how it gets impacted. So whether it gets impacted by the change of weather, or a change of job, a change of relationship, a situation that causes, let's say you feel a lot of grief, someone passes away. These things will impact your system, and to help achieve balance again, we can take steps to help regulate. Let's say oftentimes when we have grief, our body reacts to hold that grief. Perhaps our breathing becomes more and more shallow to somewhat dissociate from that feeling, which in many cases is needed. We need to be able to do that. I can't go to a meeting and be sitting there with a box of Kleenex and crying and be able to function in that meeting. I wouldn't be accepted. So we need to do these things. We need to kind of dissociate somewhat from our bodies at times, things that are at hand. But then, we have this powerful tool of constellations that help us directly intervene with a pattern like that. Or, if I lost my mother, I can deal with that grief, open it up in a safe environment. So, and this is kind of what we do with 5 element constellations. They're really quite different in that usually there's no mother and father. Sometimes it pops in that the resonance with the elements ends up being like mother is Mother Earth, and metal ends up being father in many, many, many cases I've seen over and over. And what we're doing kind of with 5 elements is we objectify these aspects of ourselves to see if our system is, let's say, in congruence, if it's in balance, if it's able to communicate from one element to another, and you'll see it personified in the representatives. So they'll say, let's say fire is standing there and has very little energy and saying, I'm afraid of water. Well, water has the potential of putting fire out. Um, it sounds metaphorical, but the deeper and deeper you go into it, you can see the relationships between the kidneys and the heart and how they need to work together in order for the system to function. And there might be feelings that are preventing, let's say, a good relationship. And the way I think of it is we have our likes and dislikes in life. I don't like Donald Trump. I like Bernie Sanders, and then that kind of our likes and dislikes are internalized also into what feelings I like and what feelings I don't like. And when we see in family constellations, we're always, as every family member has a place. Sometimes, people lose their place if they committed an atrocity. But by and large, every family member has a place in the family system. And the similar thing is every feeling has a place. But if my likes and dislikes are so, let's say, rigid, I won't have, let's say, any capacity to feel grief because of a strong reaction towards it. So my teacher, Dietrich Veth, would say in constellation work, you need to love, and it is broken German, he would say this. So it's like, you need to love to cry, to be a facilitator, like, took me a while to understand that really it's extremely helpful in life to be able to take the negative experiences that we have, or we call them negative many times, if we're open to them, they're actually lead us to a deeper place of feeling with more inclusion. So anyway, the basic thing with 5 elements is we're just balance, and then also learning about our bodies so that we can recognize it for ourselves, and that you'll be able to see that, okay, I have a lot of tension if I go out for a walk. So the walking would be kind of a wood, getting some exercise would be regulating wood, which is liver and gallbladder. And liver and gallbladder, the expression of those. And we have it encoded in our language. When you say, hey, that person's got a lot of gall, I mean, they're, that is really associated with the gallbladder, and how it, a wood person will have this kind of aggressive, hey, I'm the #1 salesman for Remax, and and they really have that ability to go after goals and focus, and they want to be #1. So that's kind of an archetype. Nobody is purely wood. We're much more complex, and I think on a certain level, 5 elements is not necessarily spiritual. It's functional. It's seeing how we're functioning, and it's as if we're looking at the wires that energy is running through, that the spirit is running through, and each one of the pathways that the energy runs through, and each element has 2 to 4 meridians. It's as if they have you can read them based on character. So a person, going back to wood, a person who is really aggressive, is going after it, you can measure and take their pulses and go, wow, there's lots of energy in the gallbladder and liver, and they're very strong that way. Whereas, let's say you have the Mother Earth archetype, that person might be very, very strong in the stomach and spleen, which is earth. So, and that very warm person, they say Robin Williams was kind of a fire person. So he would, when he was doing his thing, he'd be just burning with this wondrous humor, and people be attracted to it like a fire. So, and this is all metaphorical for giving us a sense of, gee, you know, hey, today I wake up and I'm barely present. Well, my fire is not really burning, so I can't even feel my heart. Oh, there's pain in my chest, you know, today for some reason. Well, it can be, oh yeah, it's turning, summertime is fire time. And many of us, a lot of times, are going. And you've heard the burning the candle from both ends kind of thing. Many of us do that in summer, especially, you know, up north. The days are so long, that kind of thing. So fire, you know, has that warmth and attraction, and it's fully animated life, you could say. So it's like I can read myself by saying, okay, today I woke up and it took me a while to get oriented, that kind of thing. The fire's not burning too bright. You know, what do I need? I might need to go out for that walk, which is wood. Wood feeds fire, that kind of thing. So in the constellations, we see this, and what I see as the resolution of a constellation is really a neutrality where everything is energetically supported and grounded, as kind of what I'm aiming for to explore in the conference, is everything is grounded, fully expressed, but it's interesting, it'll be at a neutral place, meaning there's not a lot of attraction, repulsion, likes and dislikes. Each element is able to face each other as they are. So if I go into archetypes in terms of, you know, you go, oh yeah, the mother earth persona, and then metal is, you know, can be structural, and, you know, let's say for just a generalization, a CPA, very type A, you know, everything's got to be. So I've always been kind of free-flowing, kind of I've been a musician. I studied music in school, and I wasn't that structural of a composer. So when I might have a strong reaction to the CPA, who's very, you know, it's got to be this way. First, you got to do that. Second step, third step, fourth step. And I've actually, it's been very helpful for me to see, oh, I have a very strong dislike for that. And where is the virtue? Where can it serve me? You know, it's like Keith Richards would be the ultimate go with the flow kind of guy. He's like, you know, I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be anywhere. You know, so he just gets up in the morning and goes with the flow. And whereas, you know, a more structured approach is, okay, the night before I make my list of things to do. I get up in the morning, I start executing my list. So these can be, you know, and if that is overpowering everything else, then I might not be much on the level of being able to feel much, because it becomes all consuming. So as far as the conference goes, where we're grounding these aspects of ourselves, they have specific pathways that they actually ground through. So let's say if I have a feeling of predominant fear in my system, obviously we can do a systemic constellation with the family and see, oh, this fear, dad was in war, impacted the family, or there was a death in the family, and there seems to be this predominant sense of fear. So when we look at that fear is related. Think of water, and if I took you out into a big body of water and pushed you out of the boat and said, okay, swim, you know, and I don't know about you, but I have the reaction a lot of times if it's a deep body of water, I start thinking, what's underneath me? You know, and then if there's any like uh, seaweed or any of that kind of thing that's entangling in my feet, I begin to feel fear. So, and with those thoughts. So water and fear are related. Each one has kind of an expression of when it's depleted, and sometimes it can be that, you know, your energy is low and you're just feeling fear. It's very mechanical. And then the other thing is it can be drivers that are happening in your life. Let's say if I didn't drink very much water, I'm dehydrated, that system's not going to be functioning very well. Energy is going to be low. I might be feeling this inexplicable fear. Or I fried foods impacted my liver. I'm feeling angry. Yeah. So, and it's like, gee, no one's done anything to me. I'm angry at everyone, you know, and they're all reasonable. You know, I'm just being angry. So that means that we ground that. You know, wood is a very interesting one because it has a lot to do with the head. There's no brain meridian, but the gallbladder runs over the top of the head in a couple of different columns. And then many people have migraines in the occiput here, or on either side of the head. It's gallbladder related and can easily be dealt with by opening up the neck, or of course in a constellation can be addressed pretty easily, and sometimes have long-term consequences in terms of alleviating the condition. But you might, if those are blocked, you might be feeling irritable, agitated. And again, these are just indicators for how that particular element is functioning. So, you know, as we go through a constellation, we just make a place for these feelings to come up. And of course, you know, from the facilitator perspective, you know, we can look at primary and secondary feelings, anger being a secondary feeling most of the time, and fear being a primary, and grief being a primary. And you can see them in the five elements. And it's very interesting that the order has the anger would be in wood, and wood is basically the fifth element. So it's represented in a secondary emotional context, which I find very fascinating that it just does that. So anyway, it gives you a comprehensive way of seeing, okay, I could look at astrologically what time of year I'm born and that kind of thing. I could look at my space in my house and see that the feng shui, you know, is maybe affecting me. It's very subtle. Or I suppose people would say it can not be so subtle, but we work, so in a constellation, essentially that's what we're working with. And at the conference, the grounding aspect of it is that what I find many people talking about, you know, is grounding from the earth. And that is very, very important. And a lot of the work in constellations talks about the heart. But what I find is helpful in five elements is that it's a multi-directional means of grounding. So not only do we ground from the earth, so that's going up, but we also ground from the head down. And many of you might, this is kind of clear that the head is, you could say, masculine, and the mind is kind of represented as being masculine also. And that energy, when it's caught in your head, can cause lots of problems, you know, in terms of you just ruminating and thinking about something. So when we're grounding, we're also grounding the mind. And that goes from the top down. And as I was saying, gallbladder is up here. And it actually, the pathways, they start here, go up over the top of the head, and down to the ground. And that's the direction that they move. So not only are we grounding from the ground going up, taking in energy that way, but we're also, they say we're receiving energy from the above our head, and that's needs to be able to go down in a nice even flow. So that's what we're trying to achieve in a 5-element constellation. Is it's more about, am I open to myself, or am I at war with myself? And when you have 5 representatives really helping you regulate yourself and find, let's say, a different level of balance, then it's like getting 5 helpful hands to experience yourself in a different way.
Wow, this is going to be so exciting, John. That's fascinating. Wow, we should have another talk. Oh, wow, this is great. Thank you so much for your very interesting talk. I look forward to meeting you at the conference. And just for sake of everyone else, John's workshop is Sunday the 15th from 2 to 3:30. I think you could probably talk for a few days about this, perhaps. And the title is Feeling Our Roots, Grounding with the 5 Elements. Thanks again, John.
Thank you so much, Linda.
See you at the conference.
Mm-hmm. Take good care.
Okay.